2, 1.
Hundreds of migrants have been camping out in front of the UNHCR offices in Tripoli since October 2021. The protesters, including women and children, are still gathering in front of the organization's offices asking for
2,
help.
1.
Hundreds of migrants have been camping out in front of the UNHCR offices
كشف باللايف.
Hello, everyone. We are today listening to the voices of refugees from Libya. We want to introduce these refugees and to give a space for their to represent their demands. They came from different countries and regions, from South Sudan, Sierra Leone, Chad, Uganda, Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, Somalia, Eritrea, Ethiopia, and Sudan. They fled from civil wars, persecutions, climate change, and poverty back in their countries of origin. They were all pushed by circumstances beyond human endurance. They wanted to reach Europe, seeking a second chance for life, and therefore they arrived in Libya. There, they became the hidden workforce of the Libyan economy. They lay bricks, build Libyan houses, repair and wash cars, cultivate and plant fruit and vegetables for Libyan farms and Libyan dining table. They mount satellites on high roofs for the Libyan screens. They got exploited. Apparently, this is not enough. The workforce is not enough. They asking them for full control of their bodies and dignity. What they found on the arrival was a nightmare made of torture, rape, extortions, arbitrary detentions, and they suffered every possible human rights violation. Not only once. They have been forcibly intercepted at sea by the so-called Libyan Coast Guard, funded by the Italian and European authorities, and then brought back to prisons and inhuman construction camps. Some of them had to repeat the cycle of humiliation 2, 3, 5, up to more than 10 times. They tried to raise their voices and spread their stories. They told that to institutions, politicians, journalists, but apart from that, very few interested ones in their stories remained unheard. They are deliberately silenced. They organized and mobilized a few months ago a demo, a protest in the front of UNHCR. And by the way, the UNHCR is the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, the one who should represent the refugees to defend their rights. But instead of that, they found the Libyan authorities, the forces, arresting them, torturing them. They have demands, they have voices to be heard, And now we start with the first speaker, Jackson. Please, Jackson, you have the floor. Raise your voice and let us hear your voice.
Yes, thank you very much for your chance. It's me, Jackson. PG as every for what have seen what and migrant, but they shift the name from the refugees and the migrant to slaves, because we used to work in their farms, in their houses, as the friend stated earlier. And when we were there, most of the people, they use different kind of violence in children, women, youth, elders, disabled, and many people. And UNHCR and the governments are they live this people, media, because our are only means which hear voice what how so but the media so speak and already they have they cannot speak thing, and that's why today we were losing friends when we were in front of CDC, because there are many people who been attacked, and until now we don't know where the people used to be. Should complain.
Dear Jackson, we barely hearing you. The network is really, it's really hard to understand.
Because the and
So actually, Jackson is connected to us from Ain Zara, and that could be an explanation that the connection is so poor. He's connected from Libya, from the land of torture and hell. He's trying to send us his voice. He's trying to share with us the experience, the tough experience that they are facing. Until then, until we have a better connection to Jackson, I would like to connect with another voice from there, another voice from Libya. Lam, the floor is yours. Please share with us.
Hello, if you can hear me. Hello. You can hear me, right?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Go ahead.
Okay, that's fine. I would like to talk about the situation of Libya. Actually, I'm not in Libya now. I'm in Europe, okay? We all know that Libya is not a safe country. Migrants are suffering all the time. Migrants are in the hand of government and they are suffering too. And those who are in the hand of the smuggler, they are also suffering. I've been there for 5 years in Libya before I came to Europe, so I know the situation there. It is really, really worse, and many people deserve to be protected. But you know, we all know the situation in Libya. Many have been tortured, being shot dead. Many ladies have been raped. You know, this is so. You know, since I came here, I still remember what I have seen and what I've gone through when I was in Libya. You know, it is really, really painful. Like those who have been brought back from the sea, those who try to cross the sea, you know, to get to a better place, and then they have been brought back to Libya, and they are in detention center, being tortured all the time, you know. And I still have a connection with many friends of mine. Even yesterday, they attacked them in one place that I know in Tripoli. This is really, really serious issue. So they have been attacked, and even the IOM went there and see the situation also. They just take the picture and then they go back. This is so. It is a very worse situation that people are going through this in Libya. Even UNHCR also sometimes they don't work hard, you know, to serve life. Because I've been there. I've been an asylum seeker. Even I witnessed the situation at the front of the CDC when many migrants gathering there and trying to speak out their voice that they need to be protected, they need to be evacuated out of Libya, because Libya is not a safe place for them to live in peacefully. I have been there. I know the situation there. Actually, I'm still in contact with many friends that they are still texting me, giving me a message that they are going through a lot of things. You know, we all know that many migrants have been forced to work without getting paid, and some are being used by Malaysia to carry guns. You know, forcing them in that situation, and they don't have a choice to say no, because when they say no, they mean they want to die, you know. So a lot of people have been forced to do things that they don't want to do in Libya, actually. And when you look at the situation of the people in their country, I mean, many migrants left their country because of the war and they need protection also. I don't blame them seeing them in Libya because they need to survive, they need to go to Europe so to find a protection. So I myself have been forced in my country by the war in South Sudan, and then I came to Libya just because I made up my mind to go to Europe and, you know, to be protected, to live in a good place where I should continue education, supporting family back home. You know, a lot of people need to be protected. A lot of people need to be evacuated out of Libya, because we have seen this situation for many years now in Libya. There is no other way to survive. It's only unless you are out of Libya, because every time you see a gunshot, you can see people have been killed for no reason. Some have been kidnapped just for ransom. I would like to say that the situation in Libya is really, really worse. I'm not in Libya right now. I'm outside Libya, but I've been there. I know the situation that people are going through. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Lam. Thanks for sharing with us your experience and sharing with us the experience of your friends and the people that you know. And yeah, welcome safely to Europe. And I know it's not, it's really, it's not the end of the destination. It's not the final destination when you arrive to Europe. It's really a start and the beginning of a different struggle, of another journey in life, to establish a new life, to establish a new connections, to start build in the life that you want. Wanna again to stress and to thank Jackson for the contribution from Ain Zara. And Ain Zara, for the people that don't know, is the detention place. So he's actually was connecting to us from inside the detention place where he detained with dozens of others who got arrested after the 10th of January, after the protest, and they put there. Thanks, Jackson, again. And we really hope that we have the chance to hear your voice again. And now I would like to go to Charlie and listen and hear the voice of him sharing with us. Charlie, please take the floor.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me the floor. And I would also want to send my heartfelt gratitude to the people paying attention and trying to listen to our voices as we try to amplify and send a clear message to the world of what we have been put to go through well in the Libyan lands. It's not been easy, and as I came to Libya, I was forced by circumstances that I couldn't withstand in my home country, and this goes for hundreds of thousands of people who comes here. The experience that we have seen here and that we go through in Libya are very awkward, very grave human right violation that is happening in the Libyan territories. As we see through the desert where it all starts, there are these kidnaps and human trafficking that goes on where there is a government that is responsible to protect asylum seekers within its territory, but they have failed to do this because all we see around are militias managing and then kidnapping people, putting them to forced labor, and then different entities, trying to influence and then conscript people into different sections of work. At the same time, today, I want to remind the world that we are people. We are not just talking about numbers that hundreds of people have drowned in the Mediterranean. Hundreds of people died starving in the desert. We are talking about people. We are talking about someone who has a name. People that has a family, a father, a mother, a child, a sister to somebody. But the international community have failed us. The Libyan society, the Libyan government, the European authorities, they have failed us in this particular point where they fail to admit that we are human beings and we count. We do not count in their own account. So these people, for these reasons, we have been trying hard to do whatever we can do to amplify our voices, because we are looking at the circumstance, how people are being ill-treated. Since Italy signed a memorandum of understanding with the Libyan authorities to intercept and bring back immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. So the interception process on the Mediterranean are being done forcibly with a full violation. People are beaten, people are killed, women are raped, and others are extorted, while others are being put to forced labor. All these things happens in Libya under the watch of international community and the Libyan authorities. Why do they do this? We understand that they are being paid by the European authorities. The more funds they receive, the more ill treatment that they are ready to do to harm the refugees, the poor people, the asylum seekers who are trying to reach the European borders. With the funds of the European authorities, people are killed at the mercy of the taxpayers, of the European taxpayers. They do not know that their money is causing harm to the innocent people, is causing harm to a family, to a mother, to a father, whose will and intentions are but to find safety and protection where he can feed his family or where he can find freedom to live a life like anyone else. When we are talking about interception on the sea, people are intercepted and brought back to this inhuman detention center. Everything which happens there are not documented by the government. The detention center system doesn't have any record of what is happening, how many people have been brought, how are they treating them, what do they eat. They are consequently put in human detention center, in human places where they do not have access to toilets, they do not have access to health care, they do not have enough food, they lack places where they can sleep, they do not have blanket, hygienic control are not there. They are just there, just like even animals are treated better than us. We are treated like we are nobody because we are the hidden workforce to the Libyan economy and the European authorities who are interested in making money, in pushing away people trying to reach its borders. But we want to make it clear that it's a shame to the European authorities, it's a shame to the international community for abandoning and forgetting that these people count, for abandoning people that are trying to reach safety, for not admitting that we have a right to live, we have the right to seek asylum. So we also look at the failure of the NGOs, the international NGOs that are active within the Libyan society. We have UNHCR, we have the International Organization for Migration. These are the big organizations that are functional within Libya. With their presence, they were supposed, and they are supposed to advocate for the rights of these people. But we see that what they do is not enough as an organization, as an international organization, as a humanitarian organization. They are supposed to pressure. They are supposed to face the Libyan authorities and the European authorities on the regular basis of people dying on the Mediterranean, the forcible interception of immigrants on the Mediterranean and bringing them to inhuman detention, where then there are no records of what is happening to them. Nobody really cares. The UNHCR, what they do is they register people and then process their file. The processing of these files takes years for their asylum to be recognized or to give any meaning to their status within the Libyan territories. Where at the same time, the Libyan authorities, it is failing to work along with the NGOs to respect the asylum certificate given to asylum seekers and to refugees. For these reasons, they torture them and they walk away without being called to justice, without being questioned. The question here is, why is the international community all silent? We're taking an example on what happened in Garish on the 2nd of October when we were in our homes, and out of nowhere, we were surprised by these massive weapons, armored vehicles. They came for us in the middle of night, out of nowhere, and as if we were terrorists, as if we were criminals, as if we were armed. And the first deception, pretext that they said we were drug dealers, we owned prostitution house, and we were doing things that seemed illegal. Well, in reality, there were nothing that we did of such kind. They walked away without nothing happened. They kicked us, they put us in prison, people lost their lives, and they still, when people were driven to in these inhuman detention centers, known as Al-Mabani, and so many other which are unofficial, where people were traded for ransoms, where people were trafficked and put to forced labor. They walked away in a day broad light. The international community were watching and they have been watching. We gathered ourselves and we went to the community day center, to the UNHCR headquarters. We were afraid. We had no one to turn to but the humanitarian organization. What they did was they pushed us away. They were not ready to listen to us and to find solutions to our problems. We tried to reach to the Libyan authorities and the European, especially the Italian authorities, because we know that there are a total complicity in these ill activities, the ill treatment that is happening to us in Libya, because they pay for this. They are funding the Libyan Coast Guard. They are funding the militias to keep us away from their borders. When we tried to raise our voices, we campaigned, we cried, we stopped, we were thirsty, we slept in cold. Women, children, they lost hope in all the organization. Their only hope was that the international community will intervene and then bring about change to their situation, try to amplify their voices so that the sufferings could end, so that they could be respected, their rights could be protected and their lives within the Libyan territories. And the new asylum process, a system could be built to process the people within the Libyan territories. They hoped, and we still hope, that Italy will stop paying the Libyan Coast Guard, who are ill-treating refugees and asylum seekers. But for 100 days while we protested, we campaigned, we cried endlessly. It echoed, but just to a very fortress Europe. Nobody listened to us. We were again surprised. We were attacked in the middle of the night by the Libyan militias and its authorities when they came and swept away the entire campaign where we encamped ourselves by the sidewalk in front of the UNHCR headquarters. We questioned the UNHCR if they had any idea this was happening. And if they had no idea, why did they abandon us? We were there for 3 months and 10 days, and they were not ready to listen to us. They were not ready to call on the international community and tell them they have humanitarian crisis in Libya. They have a state of emergency for refugees and asylum seekers and immigrants because of the ill treatment coming from the militias and the Libyan government, being supported by the Italian authorities and other European member states that are funding the Libyan Coast Guard. People were taken to Nzara on that very night, on the 10th of January. People were taken to Bir Ghanam, and few more hundreds managed to escape, including me as I speak today. But still, we are put in an inhuman situation. We live in perpetual fear for our lives because our voices doesn't matter. And so does our life to the Europeans who are paying for this, to the Libyan authorities, to the Libyan militias who are making use of us because we are a source of an easy income. For these reasons, we still continue to call. There is nothing big we can do but with our voices. We believe that the international community can stand up and bring about change to this situation. Like what is happening in Ukraine, we have seen that thousands of refugees, of internally displaced people that managed to flee Ukraine and arrived in Italy in large number, but yet nobody is talking about this. We have seen in only a month, thousands of people fled, and they were welcomed by most of the European member states. This means there is a neglect here. The international community have to value human lives, not by color, not by state of education, not by state of their backgrounds, but that we count because we are human beings, we count. We are like the Ukrainians. We are in solidarity with them. We are sorry because the situation that they are currently through is what we have been through in Africa, is what we have been through, but it was not disclosed to the media because we lack media coverage in most of these situations. Like what is happening in Libya. We know that media houses try to cover this, they try to speak about, but at the same time, nothing have changed. Even though we came up and we try to speak for ourselves, still we have been silenced. Still, as we are speaking, there are refugees put in prisons of Enzara. There are asylum seekers. There are immigrants being forcibly intercepted. This year alone, we are talking about lives. We are talking about 400 plus that have drowned alone this year on the Mediterranean Sea. Thank you. There is no word that I will say that will match our situation in Libya, but we are still trying to reach the global public to pay attention to what is happening in Libya, that our lives counts. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie, very much for sharing with us. And you touched a really sensitive aspect, sensitive side when you speak about the people that displaced from Ukraine. And we see the different of behavior from EU and European member states towards Ukrainians refugees and how they consider them as refugees, but others not. And also we see this double standards of treatment with people of color who fled the war in Ukraine under the same circumstances, but here became the hypocrisy of politics. And you touched also a very important point when we talk about the European externalization borders policy. And we see the practice in Libya, we see the practice in sub-Saharan countries and Sahel countries. We see not just the influence, but also we see how the European Union trying to navigate and establish and implement the policies to extend the fortress Europe against the people who are looking for better life. And this actually, it's not an accusation when you are looking for better life, for safety. And this become as a consequences of the practice, the economical and political practice of the European Union and the member states themselves in Africa. Now, I would like to ask everyone watching us, everyone showing solidarity, if you have questions, if you have any remarks, please share it with us through the comments. And now we will screen and present a video from some lady in Libya sharing with us her story. She has been trafficked, sexual abused, and tortured. Please watch with us. Thank you.
Je suis ivoirienne, je suis sortie depuis 2002 à cause de la guerre de la Côte d'Ivoire. Et pendant cette guerre, j'ai été violée par 4 hommes, 2 amis de mon père et 2 autres inconnus. Parce que j'ai reconnu 2 parmi ces 4 qui m'ont violée, ils ont décidé de me tuer. Pour faire taire l'histoire, ils ont tiré sur moi. Je suis tombée. J'ai été sauvée par quelqu'un. Et je suis venue trouver une meilleure vie. Je me suis retrouvée en Libye. J'ai été en esclavage en Libye pendant 1 an 6 mois. Dans des familles libyennes qui m'ont maltraité. J'ai travaillé 24 heures sur 24 heures. Et après le travail, ils m'utilisent sexuellement toute la nuit. J'ai souffert. C'est pour cela que j'ai décidé de traverser la mer pour trouver une meilleure vie en Europe. Et j'ai été ramenée 3 fois par soi-disant les gardes-corps libyens. Je me suis retrouvée en prison, ce qu'ils appellent un centre de détention en Libye, c'est l'enfer total. Je vous dis, c'est l'enfer total, où l'homme n'est pas respecté, où le droit de la femme est bafouillé. C'est un centre de trafic d'hommes, trafic de femmes. J'ai expérimenté moi-même. La femme qui était à côté de moi en prison n'a pas pu tenir les tortures, elle est morte. Et c'est dans ces contacts, j'ai vu un numéro que j'ai appelé pour l'aide. Et quand j'ai appelé pour l'aide, il a dit qu'il était prêt à m'aider sans me dire les conditions. Et il est venu payer 2500 pour me retirer de la prison. Et il m'a envoyé chez lui cette nuit. Toute la nuit, il voulait me violer. J'ai refusé. Nous avons lutté toute la nuit. Je me suis enfuie de chez lui. Je suis allée au ACR pour me déclarer, pour demander l'asile. Ils m'ont accordé l'asile. Mais ce dernier m'a envoyé un message pour dire que l'argent qu'il a pris pour me retirer de la prison, c'est un Libyen qui lui a donné l'argent. Et il a donné ma photo à ce Libyen, il est en train de me chercher. Donc si ce Libyen me voyait en Libye, il va faire ce qu'il veut de moi. Je vous en prie. J'ai dit ça à ACR que je ne suis pas en sécurité, que l'ACR m'aide. Mais jusqu'à présent, pas de réponse. J'ai demandé ma protection à ACR, pas de réponse. Ce que je vous dis, je ne suis pas la seule femme à traverser. Les femmes réfugiées en Libye souffrent. Elles dorment dans la rue. Elles sont maltraitées, torturées. Aidez-moi à sortir de la Libye. La Libye, c'est l'enfer. La Libye, c'est l'enfer. Je vais aller terminer mes études. Je vais aller terminer mes études et trouver le travail. Aidez-moi.
Thank you. Thank you for that a message, for sharing. Thank you for sharing this hard experience. We actually would like to help all the people over there. There is a question saying that what we can do, actually we can do a lot. We can discuss that in practice what we can do, but we can do a lot. We can talk about these people and their struggle. We are living in a democratic countries. We can approach to our politicians, to people that we are giving our voices and ask them to raise the demands to the states, to stop funding such a brutal authoritarian regime, to help these people to go out this hell. We can collect funds and do funding for these people to continue their trip. We can ask for safe passage instead of putting millions euros in war, in equipments, in weapon industry. We can help these people. We can help them to improve their lives. Now we will try again to talk to Jackson, the one who still in the detention places. Please, Jackson, take the floor and raise your voice.
Thank you very much. I hope you are getting me right.
Yes, we hear you well.
Good. Thank you for giving me this chance. Yes, I want to state what I have experienced in Libya. And it's not only me, what all the refugees, experienced in Libya. Since the entrance of the refugees, or the asylum seekers in Libya, we have, experienced different kind of violence. But whatever I do, because first I accuse the, humanitarian, how do you call it, UNHCR, because it's the first organization who play this role. I mean, to segregate and to make distinctions on these people. We knew that nobody hates his or her country. Only when face some difficulties, then later you can escape from your country and ask for help from the international communities and international organizations. As my friend stated earlier, we spent 110 days in front of CDC without any fundamental access from the international organizations and even UNHCR itself and the other NGOs. No organization, came and help us or even offer us any kind of assistance. And it's not only that, also the authorities and the UNHCR are people who now prevent, the media and the international media from the refugees, which their voice could be raised and heard. And that's why asylum seekers and the refugees holding refugee status, or we just call it refugee documents, UNHCR documents. But these documents could not be acknowledged in the country anymore. Whenever you go anywhere, they ask you about passports. They need passports. But we know that most of the refugees and the asylum seekers entered illegally to the country. That's why, because they cannot acknowledge the document. Whenever they ask you and you don't have that document, they just take you to prison. They take whatever you have, and they put you in prison. Later, they can ask you for money. This is what happened. But for me, what I wanted, because I want to beg from the international communities, international organizations, international governments, to see whatever we have suffered and whatever we have experienced, because we have suffered a lot and we don't want to suffer more than whatever we have suffered. And also to the UNHCR in Libya also cannot make any segregation among the refugees, because we knew that all the refugees are equal in all the access, and there's no distinction between the refugees in right and dignity. So and also what we have seen, because it was really painful, the war which broke in Ukraine, because it is the same experience we have experienced. That what we were not even hope that anybody in their life can experience such life, but we are very sorry for that, and we hope that there will be a peace and there will be understanding point between them, and everybody could be in peace. We don't want to anybody, any part of the world, to be suffered, as we heard from from the video what the lady experienced, because has really broke my heart, has really even automatically changed my idea. I was trying to talk a lot, but unfortunately the video has automatically changed my my mind and my life, because it is the same thing happening to everybody in Libya, specifically to women and the youth. This is what happened. Later, when they put you in prison, they ask for money. If you don't have, then you can spend. A time there. If you don't have, then later they can just take you to work. You spend like months, by the way, if you don't have, because some people, we knew that some people, they don't have anything in the countries. For those people who have, some people who can help them, they can have. But for us and the most of the refugees who are now in prisons, and different prisons, different jails, because they don't have any assistance. They cannot even, offer any assistance from any part of the world. And so we beg you to raise up our voice to the international states, to international organizations, to international communities to help us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackson, for your contribution. Thank you for reaching to us. Thanks for sharing with us. And now we have another video that what we like to screen it to you. Please stay tuned.
Okay.
እድገቴ ኢትዮጵያዊ ዜግነቴ ኢትዮጵያዊ ነኝ። ኦሮሞ ክልል ከሀገር ከወጣሁኝ 5 ዓመቴ ነው። ሊቢያ በሳራ ነው የሄድነው። ወደ ሊቢያ የገባ ነው። ሊቢያ ከገባን ብዙ ችግሮች አይተናል። ሊቢያ ላይ በጣም ምን ወሊድ የሚባል ላይ በጣም ልጆች የሚቸገሩበት ቦታ ነው። እስር ቤት፣ ብር የሚጠየቅበት፣ የምትደፈሪበት፣ በጣም በቃ የምትመቺበት፣ አካል ጎድሎ የምትሆኝበት ቦታ ነው። ያ ቦታ እንደ ቀልድ የሚሞትበት ሰው፣ ብዙ እህቶች ብዙ ወንድሞች የሞቱበት ነው። ከእንደገና ከዛ ታሞ ወይ መሞት እና እንትን ውስጥ እያለ የሚጣል ሰው ነው። እዛ ውስጥ ይጣላል። ወደ ውጭ ወጥቶ ሰው እየሆነ ሰው ይጥለዋል። በዛ ላይ ሴቶች በጣም ይደፈራሉ፣ በመብራት ይቃጠላሉ ብር ካላመጡ። በጣም በቃ እዛ እኔ እንጃ በጣም የሚያስቸግር ቦታ ነው። ወደ ባህር ሲሄዱ ልጆች ይያዛሉ መንገድ ላይ። በተለይ መንገድ ላይ ችለሽ የምትሄጂበት ቦታ አይደለም። ሩቅ ቦታ ለመሄድ ያስፈራሻል። ቦታ በዋባ አለ፣ ሁሉም ቦታ ያስቆሙሻል፣ ይመቱሻል፣ ስልክሽን ይቀበሉሻሉ። ያ ሁሉ ነገር ሆኖ ራሱ የምትታሰሪበት ቦታ በጣም ጉዳት አለው። ብዙ ልጆች እግራቸው ላይ ተመቶ እጅ እግር የሚቆረጥ አለ። ሴት ሆና ጡቷ ላይ በመብራት የሚንጠባጠብበት ቦታ ነው። መብራቱን አውጥቶ ሶኬት ውስጥ በመብራት ነው የሚመቱ።
Thank you. Thanks for sharing, and really sorry to hear all this tough experience and the torture that people are facing just because they are dreaming of a new life, of a good life. There is a question that we would like to hear and answers from you, from your voice. Someone is interested to hear more thoughts from you about the different treatment of refugees from Ukraine, for instance, and different African countries. So please let's hear if you want to share your thoughts with us. Charlie, Jackson. Okay, Charlie, go ahead, please.
Yep.
The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you once again. Well, going back to Ukraine, where it started over a month ago, we saw different kind of treatment for people of color. We were heartbroken. It reminded us that we are still in a place that we do not deserve to be, like what is happening in Libya, how we are treated. We saw that the foreign students, because most of them were students from Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, and in most Ukrainian cities, when the war broke out, everybody was displaced, and they wanted to find a place where they could hide themselves, and so did the Ukrainians. At this time, it was a race for life, but still people chose who to welcome in and who to say no to. We saw our brothers standing stranded, starving at the border of Poland, the border of Belarus. These places, we felt like we were nobody, like it signals some feelings. This developed even self-hate, that we started to hate ourselves for being who we are. If people who went to Ukraine had their documents on them, they didn't go to Ukraine just as immigrants, like what is happening in Libya. These were individuals, and they are still individuals who went to Ukraine legally for educational purpose, and they had their documents on them. But when chaos rose, they were segregated. They were told and treated in a way that their life doesn't matter and they do not count because they are people of color. The same happened. This happened until they tried to raise their voice, they tried to raise concerns. We saw all different reactions on television channels. We were told that, Ukrainians, they are just like our brothers. They are just like Europeans. They are middle-class people. They own cars. They have money. They are educated. They are IT engineers, whereas Africans are not. So the question was, are there two different lives? That the people of color, the Europeans, that they have another life that they are living, which we do not live? We questioned ourselves if the same breath that we are breathing in and breathing out is different from what is in Europe, from what people of color have, or the perspectives that the European policymakers, European authorities, or that they have taught their institutions, that they have taught its citizens to believe. Because for them, whoever crosses the boat, takes a boat to Italy, is a criminal, is coming from what is it? From a terrorized country. If you are coming from Afghanistan, from Syria, you are a terrorist because we are being judged by our background, by our religion, by our faith. This shouldn't be, because we felt completely abandoned, even during the time of chaos, even during the race for life, the race for humanity. We still continue to extend our calls on those at the borders of Ukraine, if this is still happening, and also the same towards the Libyan society and the European authorities who are involved in the ill treatment of refugees in Libya, immigrants and asylum seekers in Libya. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Charlie. Thanks for your thought. Please, it's important to support these people. We are receiving a lot of comments in the video for people stuck in Libya calling for help. It's really important to donate, to support them, to raise your voices in your communities. If you have nothing but donating and funding them to keep the struggle, to keep their voices loud, to present their struggle, please do. You can find the link in the live chat. And now we have a last video to screen it, to show it to you. Please follow.
I was subjected to situations which are beyond human imagination. Total and grave injustice within the country as an immigrant, as a refugee within Libya. The Libyan government policies has affected refugees and immigrants within the country massively in a very negative way. In the Libyan policy, for them, it is a punishable crime to enter the country illegally, since they do not have a common understanding with the UNHCR responsible for the refugees' affairs. They choose to undermine the rights of refugees. When we try to look at what the government is able to provide, how the government is handling the militias who are illiterating the refugees and migrants, and yet they go away without being brought to justice. People had lesser idea of what is going on within the country, of what is happening to refugees, of what is happening beyond the borders of Europe and the Mediterranean. So for these reasons, our idea was very simple. We wanted to create a platform for ourselves where we could speak without any filters, because we understood that the Western media, the big media houses, have never shared the real stories. Therefore, we wanted to make this very plainly to the global public and to call on the attention of the Libyan civil society, and also to reach to the global public, to the EU policymakers. The European Union and its policy declared war 5 years ago when it signed a memorandum with the Libyan authorities to intercept and bring back refugees and immigrants who were trying to reach its borders. When you look, people have been intercepted forcibly on the Mediterranean Sea, brought back to the Libyan detention centers, which are fully funded by the European Union and the policymakers against migration. And these places are meant to keep us away from the European borders. In these places, we have been killed, we have been raped, we have been tortured, we have been extorted, and we have been forced and put to forced labor. The policy of the European Union is not only dishonoring itself, it's killing us. It's violating our rights. It's committing crimes against humanity. What we want from the Libyan government, European Union, and the global public are just simple. We need our rights to be protected within the Libyan territories and to be recognized as human beings, and to give a dignified meaning to our existence within the Libyan territories. We need the Libyan government to bring about change to our situation, to educate its institutions, to educate its civil society about our existence within its territory, and to bring the perpetrators, the oppressors of our rights before justice. And the same towards the European Union. We want them to revise the migration policy and make sure that we are not killed, we are not tortured, we are not victimized or silenced by their policies against immigration.
Thank you very much for this video, for this empowerment moment. We have a question here for people still in Libya. Who of you still there for a few years, do you think the situation for refugees in Libya has it changed in the past years? Jackson, Charlie? Anyone can answer this question? Lam, you have been in Libya for few years. Okay, Charlie, please go ahead.
Yeah, with my own experience, I have been in Libya for a couple of years. I don't think so much have changed. If the circumstance is changing for refugees in Libya, it means that they are respected by the civil society, by the communities where they live. It means that the asylum certificate that they own that are given to them by the UNHCR are respected, and it is able to find them work when they search for it. But this is not happening. With this asylum certificate, with this refugee status or identification card that we have, we cannot find jobs. We cannot be enrolled into school. We are not received by the society. I mean, nothing have changed. If somebody tells me today that something have changed, I will say no. Otherwise, there will have been no evacuations, because since 2019, we have seen a couple of evacuation flights, humanitarian evacuation flights to emergency transit countries like Rwanda, like Niger, like Romania, like Italy. So which means is still the lives of refugees in Libya are in grave danger. And there seems to be no elegant solutions to these problems. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Thank you, Charlie. Lam, are you there? Hey, Lamin. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you for giving me another chance to talk again. I would like to talk about the same situation of the refugees in Libya, especially because many refugees have been tortured, they have broken legs, some are very sick, and they don't have access, to go for a treatment, and UNHCR is very low for someone who needs a treatment, and this is really, really bad, for someone who needs treatment, and you can't have an access to a medical. So I have a lot of friends that need medical treatment. If they go to UNHCR, UNHCR will not even do anything to them, I have one of my friend who have been through a sickness for many years, and the UNHCR did not make anything, even that person died at home, because if you take that person to the Libya facility for treatment, they will not accept it. And there is a paper from UNHCR, and that system is very low, to send someone to the hospital to be treated by the UNHCR is very, very difficult. So every clinic is under Libyan government. So there is no special clinic or a big hospital for humanitarian in Libya. So they are just sending people to the Libyan hospitals to be treated. And sometimes they can tell you that you have to go, you can't complete the treatment, I can say that the work of, or the mission of the humanitarian organization in Libya is very, 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 they are not working well, it's very low, and they are not doing the right things, there is many organizations in my country, in South Sudan, I've seen them, they have been working so well. So it's not like what they are doing in Libya. So people are really suffering, and they need treatment, and they can't get that medical treatment, It is very, very sad indeed. Thank you. This is what I want to add to this.
Thank you, Lam. Thank you very much, brother. Actually, there is a question asking, yes, thanks for sharing, and the person would like to write an article for the homepage of organization Pro Azul, and would like to know what country Charlie comes from and where he lives now. Charlie actually is still living in Libya, and about the country that he comes from, let's say he presents many different countries that people are still suffering in Libya. As we mentioned, there is people from Gabon, from Congo, from Eritrea, from Somalia, from Sudan, from South Sudan, from different places, from Rwanda, Burundi, Chad, Sierra Leone. So Charlie, to be honest, not just representing the country that he came from, people are representing wherever they came from and find themselves stuck in the hell of Libya. So this is one. And for more information about himself, I think this is one voice representing others who sharing the same horrible experience. Some of them are singles, individuals, and some of them are family members with children and families. So let's say it's mixed experience. And if you want to write an article about the misery that people are facing there, please get the contact with the page as written on the live chat. Now, we have a last word from Charlie himself. So please, Charlie, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much again. And we have received the questions, people who are asking about my identity. As you just mentioned that we're still in Libya and we're dealing with the very, critical conditions and inhuman treatment that we are afraid of these militias because we do not believe there is a government that can protect people who are trying to speak the truth. So for these reasons, we still remain anonymous. But here we do not represent a certain nationality. We represent everyone. We represent the misery and the horrors of refugees and asylum seekers that they are compelled to go through while in the Libyan territories. Today, our final word to the global public, people who are asking how they can support, it is not about money, because here we're talking about life. Their support means educating institutions about what is happening to people in Libya, not just refugees, not just numbers on the Mediterranean. We want them to spread the news in churches, social gatherings, wherever possible, that they are able to spread the voice and to teach the stories of people of color that are living in Libya, that are unable to get their voice heard on all the national and international televisions, that are unable to write articles about what is happening in the country to them. We want them to be our ears. We want them to be our hands. We want them to be our voice. We want them to approach the politicians that they have entrusted their voice to, respectively in their countries, not only in Europe, in Africa, in Americas, and then in Europe at large. We need them to influence the policymakers, the EU policymakers on migration. We want them to influence them that these are people that they are dealing with. They are not dealing just with merchandise. We are human beings and we matter. Our lives should count, as do theirs. We want what is happening in the English Channel, the migration policy to be revised. And we want an open border for whoever feels insecure in his country and those who wills to travel to other countries for different purposes in life, not just as immigrants, not just as refugees, not just as people who have been forced to move or people on the run. So this is our final message to them today, that we still remain here in Libya. Our lives matters, and we continue to count on you. We count on each individual, on each one of you, with your voices, with your contribution, whatever possible that you think you can do to help, it counts. No matter how small it is, no matter what word you use, so long as it is peaceful and you are using it in the right way to advocate for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much, Charlie, for these words. So we are coming towards the closing of our event tonight. So I would like to remind you now to claim the right and seek the protection of these refugees and these human beings, and to help them to arrive in countries of safety. Therefore, here again the demands now with their voices. 1, evacuation to lands of safety where their rights will be protected and respected. 2, justice and equality among refugees and asylum seekers who are registered with the UNHCR in Libya. 3, the abolishment of funding the Libyan coast guards who have constantly and forcibly intercepted refugees fleeing the Libyan hell and brought them to Libya, where all atrocities befalls them. 4, the closure of all detention centers across Libya, which are fully funded by the Italian and European Union authorities. 5, the authorities should bring the perpetrators to justice who have shot and killed our brothers and sisters, both in and out of the detention centers. 6, the Libyan authorities should stop arbitrarily detaining person of concern to the office of UNHCR. 7, to call on Libya to sign and ratify the Constitution of the 9551 of Geneva Refugee Convention. This is the demands of these people, of human beings who deserve to find a safe place to live. Thank you all for showing solidarity. Thanks for following us, and power and peace for all the human beings suffering in Libya. Thank you.